Well, ladies and gentlemen, the Southern Rising Summit 2024, the second edition, post-lunch. We are moving on to the next session. It's on new notes, blending tradition and modernity. Gives me great pleasure to welcome Bindu Subramaniam, an entrepreneur, singer, songwriter, and educator. She is the co-founder and CEO of SAPA that works with over 40,000 students a year, and the lead vocalist of Subramaniam and Tayar Sadam project. She has traveled the world performing solo with her family, her bands, and with orchestra for her students of up to 5 lakh. And she has 8 degrees. Oh my God. Wonderful. Co-authored 24 academic books, delivered multiple TEDx talks, and writes for numerous publications. She's been named among GQ's 25 most influential young Indians and BW's 40 under 40. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Bindu Subramaniam.
Okay, great. Welcome, Bindu, once again. So, multiple degrees, and you wear multiple hats. You're a singer, you're a composer, you write, you teach, and that's just you on the professional front. There's lots going on personally as well, but I want to understand which of those hats are you enjoying wearing the most?
I think that that's an answer that sort of changes based on the time of the day, time of year, time of whatever. And I think I'm very fortunate to be able to juggle these things. And in some sense, they all inform the other. So being a music educator informs my art, which informs my ability to write, which informs my ability to run a business. So I think, and that's something that comes naturally. I'm going to be slightly politically incorrect here, but something that comes naturally to women, right? Where we're so used to doing different things in different spaces and somehow figuring out how to do them together. One thing I enjoy a lot is being a mother to cats. So I have 5 cats, and I think that they are stress relief. But yeah, I think that it's all about balance. I'm sure many of us can relate to that.
Right. So, of course, you come from a very well-known family, also from the world of music. You started very early traveling abroad, collaborating with foreign artists. How has that kind of shaped the music that we see coming from you today?
Well, I was, I think what I like to say, I was raised in a very normal environment because everyone's family is normal to them, right? So at some point, I didn't realize that having incredible musicians as parents wasn't normal. But what it showed us, my siblings and I, was that that's the level of excellence that you aspire for. And fortunately, we come from a family where there isn't emphasis on fame, but more emphasis on the hard work that goes into being a good artist, right? So fame is something that you don't have control over, and it's sort of unrelated, but what you do have control over is the ability to show up every day and do a good job. And when we, as kids, were able to travel the world and learn a lot about different musicians and different cultures and different styles, we sort of understood that this, I think instinctively, that this intercultural competence is something that we all need to develop, right? So when you go to a different place, whether you look at differences between the north and south of India, or the difference between India and Africa, or India and Australia, if you're able to approach different cultures, familiarity or curiosity, this cultural curiosity, then you're immediately in a better space. And as an artist, I've tried to sort of incorporate these different fun pieces into the music that I make.
So while you were, traveling and collaborating with foreign artists and having this cultural exchange, did you also feel that Indian classical music is unique? And what role do you think it sort of plays in India's soft power globally?
I think music, food, dance, all of those are really things that India has an opportunity to emphasize more, because they're things that have become sort of, and film of course, have become fundamental in our relationship with other people. When we went to Russia, we heard people, talking about Raj Kapoor all the time. right? And you realize that this love that gets created through art, culture, music, film is something that's so strong. And you can have sort of political discourse that doesn't align with it, but if you re-emphasize sort of cultural ties, cultural collaborations, then you're on a much stronger footing. And if you appreciate someone else's music, someone else's culture, someone else's food, it becomes that much harder for you to dismiss them as a people or a culture, right? And I think as Indians, because we have such a rich and diverse culture, because we have so much of an unbroken line of culture, right? We have culture that goes back to the Vedas, but we're able to look at classical music as it existed then and classical music as it develops now in an unbroken tradition. And we're able to look at contemporary music, we're able to look at film music, and all of these things have a place. So the more we present that not just as entertainment, but as something that is representative of us as Indians and our Indian identity, I think we are able to create a more stronger picture of India.
Yeah, but is it also difficult to find that balance between keeping the traditional aspect alive while making your music more global and, you know, perhaps palatable to younger generations?
So I'm going to answer this one a little bit more as an educator, because at SAPA, what we do is we work with kids as young as 1.5 or 2 years old, and we sort of try to get them excited in Indian classical music to start with, and then of course global music, Western classical music, African music, different things. And I think the point there is the music has always been great, but where most people, and tell me if you've had an experience like this, most people disconnect is when I was a young child, I went to a music class, and the music was great or whatever, but my teacher asked me to sit still, you know, I had to be obedient. The context, so for me, when we were learning music as kids, we would go straight from school, so we'd be in uniform, right, and you're already tired and you're icky and you've been running around on the field, and then you're sitting on the floor, and then you've got this pokey little bamboo mat that's digging into your legs, and then you've got the mosquitoes that are biting you, and you know, then the teacher is saying, I'm going to sing and you're going to repeat, and then no, you're wrong, I'm going to sing and you're going to repeat again, and by that time your brain is sort of off. And that has nothing to do with the music itself, it's the methodology. So I think classical music has always been alive and well, and there have always been audiences that appreciate it. What we need to do to stay relevant comes upon us as educators and artists to work with a methodology, right? Like if in a place like this, a 4-hour exposition of a raga might not be the best thing to do, right? Sure. There is an audience and there is a space for it. Similarly, when you're working with 3-year-old children, maybe start with lullabies or start with something that is relevant to them, accessible to them. But that doesn't mean that you have to compromise on the music, I feel.
Yeah, but I would ask then that, you know, the purists would say that film music has perhaps corrupted our taste for what was classical and traditional. Would you agree with that?
I do not agree. Because again, and this is something that can be debated, what is classical, right? We talk about the music that has come from the Vedas, but if you look at the Vedic tradition, it started with one note, right? So everything was a monotonous chant. And then you decided that this is a word that needs to be emphasized more, so I'm going to sing it one note above and one note below, and that became the tritone. You had the Rig Veda, and then in the Samaveda you had 7 notes, and then around the 12th century, you had this division of Carnatic and Hindustani music, because Hindustani music had more Islamic influences in the Mughals, and the Carnatic musician became the music became the music of the temples. And at what point did we decide that it shouldn't develop further than that, right? We're not singing monotones, we're not singing tritones. We are willing to accept that classical music has developed way beyond that, and in Carnatic traditions, for example, we think the 18th century is where it peaked. But if it's a living tradition, why shouldn't it develop beyond that? And when you bring classical music into areas like film, you make it so much more accessible to wider audiences who then might come back. In our own artistic practice, sometimes we have raga-based music, and then we'll have people come up to us and be like, I didn't realize that classical music could be fun, and maybe that's a trigger to go and listen to some other kind of music.
I think we're all sort of keen to understand this through an example, you know, if you could. You know, something that you teach at SAPA, which is a blend of contemporary and classical.
Sure, absolutely. If we're set up over here. I think maybe one thing, I'm happy to invite my friend Frija, who's come in from Kerala over here. Frija's a wonderful jazz pianist,
Welcome.
so he sort of represents this mix of different traditions. Maybe what I'll ask, maybe what we can do first is a Ganapati bhajan, Frija, if that's good for you, and sort of this idea of a very traditional topic or a very traditional song and how it can be presented in a slightly more modern, contemporary, fun way. Check, check.
I think we can do better than that. Slightly better than that. That's beautiful. A gorgeous melody. Your voice is beautiful as well. And you know, I see that on social media, you have people following you, loving the kind of music that you're putting out. Do you feel that artists like you now have more control over the kind of music they're able to put out and also find an audience for it?
Absolutely. I think while we spend a lot of time worrying about the dangers of AI and how that's going to impact the creative economy, the reality is social media has made things more accessible. And I think in my father's generation, the challenge was distribution. So if you weren't signed to a label, it would be very hard to be seen at all. Now the challenge is not distribution as much as discoverability. So I think it's really amazing that you can do anything and find a tribe. And that's a beautiful thing, right? Your biggest audience might be in Iceland or Bangladesh or somewhere so far physically removed for you, but you can still find them and they can still find you.
And what's your tribe been liking of late on social media, stuff that you're putting out?
Honestly, I feel like my tribe has been liking my cats the most. But musically too, there are a few interesting things. I have the good fortune of working with musicians like Frija. Normally we have a bigger band. We have two bands that we work together with. One is called Subramania, and in Subramania we have myself on vocals, and we have my brother Ambi who does Carnatic violin and global violin styles, Frijo on the keyboard, and we have drums as well. And sometimes we do a fair bit of jazz as well.
Right, so do we get to hear some of that now?
Sure. Can do a little jazz standard. I think Frijo's getting his steps in, going back and forth. And so this song is called Baby, I'm a Fool.
It's called?
Baby, I'm a Fool.
All right, let's go.
That this was always only just a little game to you. All the time I thought you'd give your heart, I thought that I would do the same for you. Tell the truth, I think I should have seen it coming from a mile away, when the words you say are, baby, I'm a fool who thinks it's cool to fall in love. If I gave a thought to fascination, I would know it wasn't right to care. Logic doesn't seem to mind that I am fascinated by your love affair. Still my heart would benefit from a little tenderness from time to time, but never mind, 'cause baby, I'm a fool who thinks it's cool to fall in love. Maybe I should hold on just a moment and be sure it's not for vanity. Look me in the eye and tell me love was never based upon insanity. Hear the way my heart is beating. Hurry up, the moment's fleeting. Kiss me now, don't ask me how, 'cause baby, I'm a fool who thinks it's cool to fall. Baby, I'm a fool who thinks it's cool to fall. And I would never tell if you became a fool and fell in love.
Absolutely beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And I don't think we should send your colleague away just yet. Yeah, so this was absolutely beautiful. And tell us a little bit more about this song and why you love it so much.
I think as an artist, it's always really fun to be able to find different genres to play in. So one thing about jazz is that it kind of allows you to be creative. And even if you're saying the same words the spacing can be a little different, or the way that you feel it, right? And a lot of that also comes from the space and the audience that you're with. So if we were to do this in a large open air thing with drums and bass, and it could be a totally different song. But in this context, it's a nice, very intimate, fun song.
And what's a song that you love teaching your students at the academy?
So the first song that we did is very popular with students at the academy. A lot of the other songs that we do sort of depend on the age. So for example, when we start working with very young kids, we do a lot of lullabies. And I think that that's intentional because you talk about cultural sensitivity, cultural familiarity, cultural curiosity, and that comes from not looking at somebody else as other, right? So if you were to tell kids, this is a song that a mother in Africa sings to her, just like your mother sings to you, then you start with a feeling of familiarity. And so lullabies are great. And then when you get a little older, you find kids fascinated by more rhythmic things. You find kids that, in middle school and high school wanting to write their own raps and communicate. And
so it seems to me that at the academy, it's encouraged to join the dots, to join the globe, looking at the different kind of music that may be coming from that region.
Absolutely, because I don't think we're just teaching music. I think we're working with young people in order to create a more aware generation, right? We want the next generation to be better than what we are, more cultural. We want them to be leaders, right? When you look at so many companies around the world being headed by people from the Indian diaspora, people of Indian origin, and when they go out into the world as leaders, their culture or their awareness of other cultures is something that we want them to carry with them. So I think that's the context in which they should understand and appreciate music. It's not necessarily to be a musician, but to have that with you.
You also, I think, collaborated with Mahesh, and that collaboration also, took off really well. Mahesh, by the way, was here at the Southern Rising Summit last year. So the East meets West fusion music, is that something that you feel has got a fillip just because there is social media and people from different regions are sitting in different parts of the world and enjoying that fusion?
I think there has been an audience for fusion for the last 40 or 50 years. I mean, like my dad was doing fusion in the 70s, and I think coined the term global fusion, and it's always been interesting to see the interplay of Indian music with different styles. Working with Mahesh and sort of creating the Taitradam project with him and Ambi and Akshay has really been fun for us, because what is new is this idea of electronica and classical music and different languages, and so it's always fun for us to see how we can play in different spaces. Even, for example, when you don't understand the language, how do you communicate in a language that you don't understand? So.
Absolutely. So is there an example of East meets West that we could perhaps sample now?
Sure. Maybe we'll do a song which is, you may have, if you're a Netflix person, you may know this song, but that's all I'm going to preface it with. Okay. And it's a song in a language that I don't understand, and it's actually a song of protest, which most of us don't realize, but it's, to me, a really fun song.
Okay.
Una mattina mi sono alzato, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Una mattina mi sono alzato e ho trovato l'invasor. Oh partigiano, portami via, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Oh partigiano, portami via, che mi sento di morire. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E se io muoio da partigiano, tu mi devi seppellire lassù in montagna. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, 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 seppellire lassù in montagna, sotto l'ombro di un bel fiore. Elegante, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, 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 elegante, che passeranno, mi diranno che bel fiore, che sta il fiore del partigiano. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, 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 che sta il fiore del partigiano, morto per la libertà. Che sta il fiore del partigiano, morto per la libertà.
Thank you so much for that. I think that's the perfect note to end this on a high. So thank you very much, Bindu.
Thank you
and
for
thank
having
you
me.
for giving us company on stage as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Bindu Subramaniam.
Thank you, that was good.
Fantastic. Wish you sang more for us. Our Telugu song, actually, we wanted to ask you because you're in our Hyderabad. But due to time constraint, please. Thank you so much. May I take the pleasure to invite Mohit Roy Sharma, Senior Executive Editor, Outreach, ABP Network, to felicitate Bindu Subramaniam. Come.